Welcome, everyone, to the MMA Vivisection with me, Zane Simon, and my co-host, Connor Rebish. Connor? 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 Shit. We've lost him. Again. In the meantime, we are here to talk about UFC Lincoln, Gaethje versus Vick, coming to you this Saturday afternoon in Lincoln, Nebraska. A reasonably okay fight night card. I don't know. Not the best one we've done so far. But not the best one they put on this year, but not a bad card. Right, Connor?
We're live.
Yeah.
I knew that already. I've been sitting here listening to all the great things you've been saying.
Oh, good. I thought we lost you again, briefly.
It's a tall cup of water, Zane. It took a long time to fill up.
I was going to say, did you have to, like, pump the well yourself out there?
Well, I had to go to the spigot down by the creek, and that took a while, about a 5-minute walk. So everything's good now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Vivisection. Did you say that already? Yeah,
welcome to the Vivisection, everyone. Oh, man. Sorry we're coming late this afternoon. Connor forgot what day it was.
Mm-hmm.
The busy life that he leads. Just that madcap existence where it's hard to keep track of all the days run together.
Well, all the supermodels I've been dating and, you know, all the wild key parties I've been attending, it's just difficult to keep track of it all.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody. We're here now at 6:30 Eastern time. Right on schedule.
Right on schedule. All right. We're here to take a look at this fight night card, and it's okay.
Yeah, I'm all right with this one.
Yeah. It like I've said about a few fight night cards this year, if the pay-per-views are appropriately better, then this kind of quality for a fight night card is fine. You know?
Yeah, this maybe only feels like a disappointing, more of the same kind of vibe because like a lot of the pay-per-view undercards now kind of look like this.
Yeah, that's more the problem, is that when your pay-per-view undercards look like UFC 227s did up until the last couple fights, then you're just kind of like, well, you know, oh great, another crappy card. But it'd be fun, honestly.
We got Vick and Gaethje. We got Angela Hill. We got Bryan Barberena. We got Deiveson Figueiredo, Eryk Anders. Like, there's some legit, like, these people might be top 10, even possibly contender type fighters. So it's a fairly meaningful main card, at least, I think.
Yeah. All right. Let's dive right into the bottom. We've wasted enough time today already. And a bantamweight bout, Hani Yahya, Luke Sanders. Connor, take us through it.
Man, I love Hani Yahya. You know, always have, always will. He might beat Luke Sanders here. You know, I don't know. Luke Sanders has a lot going for him, but you look at his past 3 fights all together, and there is something a little off too about the way he fights. He's like a little mechanical, a little rote. It's like he's, I don't know, overthinking a lot when he's in the cage, and so his execution is kind of underwhelming sometimes. Like he'll just walk into this.
He has a bit of whatever it is that Dennis Bermudez has.
I think you're right. Yeah, with Dennis, we've always said he can't transition from defense to offense. And he really likes to attack. And so typically that means he has 0 defense. And Sanders kind of looks like that. Now, frankly, the striking defense isn't going to be as much of an issue against Hani Yahya, although we have seen K1 Yanni.
We have seen K1 Yahya for a round before he became what, you know.
He can land some. He becomes like it's like his vampiric weapon. He starts attacking on the feet, and it just drains every ounce of his stamina using it. So I'm going to stick with Luke Sanders because I think what this fight really comes down to is takedown defense.
Yep.
But honestly, like if Yahya can mix it up and land at least a couple shots to make Sanders think twice, he is a dogged takedown artist.
Yeah.
He is really, really persistent. So as long as his gas tank doesn't run out in the attempt, I think Yaya's got a real shot here against Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, if it hadn't been for Sanders' fight with Patrick Williams, who's a very good collegiate wrestler, very good, strong, powerful athlete, where Sanders basically didn't get taken down and stuffed shots and was strong in the clinch and kept the fight standing, then I'd have a lot more questions about whether or not Sanders can navigate this fight. But you know, that fight showed that Luke Sanders can be hit by just about anybody, but Hani Yahya, even by anybody's standards, is just not a good striker. So as long as Sanders can keep himself upright, then he should be able to fight Yahya off. I think probably the biggest point of interest for me would be if Yahya can backpack Sanders standing and maybe catch him and jump on his back, then he might be able to make things, drag him to the ground another way.
That's the thing. Hani doesn't need to necessarily get you down. He just needs you to like react to the threat of the ground. And he is that kind of crafty grappler. He might jump on your back. He might, I don't know, hunt for a leg or something when you think you're defending the takedown.
Yeah. So I got to pick Sanders just off the takedown defense. He's a fire plug. He's, you know, bricked up and tough to muscle around in the cage. Even if he does always have to jump in to start his off. He doesn't have any the biggest thing for Sanders is he doesn't have any range tools at all. So all of his offense is I'm outside, I'm going to jump into the pocket and start throwing. And it's just like, you're taking a chance. Are you going to get cracked really hard jumping inside?
I swear I remember him like pawing and trying to measure in his last fight, like trying to line up the left hand and just getting split when he was doing it. Because, like, again, it's not quite going from defense to offense, but it's like going from setup to attack seems like it's difficult for him too. Like just going from thinking to doing. He can only do one at a time.
Sanders is a slight underdog, interestingly enough. Opened at plus 165, immediately adjusted down to minus 107, and is currently at minus 102. So those odds are close to dead even. But Yahya opened at minus 215 and immediately adjusted up to minus 113, is currently at minus 122. No movement on those lines, but I'm a little surprised to see. I mean, I guess I'm not surprised to see Yahya as a favorite based on level of competition, but I am surprised to see him as a favorite just purely based on the matchup.
Yeah, still, you know, I'm okay with it being close because like Patrick Williams is a great wrestler. He's a great athlete. He's not a good fighter. Yeah. And Hani Yahya is and has been for a long time.
Hani is a bad athlete, a mediocre wrestler, a terrible striker, and a very good fighter.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, that brings us to a lightweight bout. Drew Dober, John Tuck. Biggest thing for this fight to me is that John Tuck seems to have a really old school MMA mentality. That really, and it's something that it doesn't serve him well to win rounds in MMA. That's kind of the biggest thing. Is it's not even that it can't be functional, and it's not like you know, when I say old school mentality, I don't mean the idea of like he's just good at one thing or he's just kind of a wrestle boxer or something like that. You know, it's not a skill set thing. It's that he takes turns when he fights. And it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to swing. Now I'm going to wait for you to swing. Now I'm going to swing.
And stand really far away and take turns.
Yep.
Classic MMA.
And, you know, and a lot of times too, while he has some dynamic striking that he can pull out, he doesn't tend to get to it as often as he should. Just because, like I say, he's kind of doing this taking turns thing, waiting to see what he can set up and standing way outside. And a lot of times he'll bank on a wrestling game to bail him out on that. And that when you're not a great wrestler and you're just kind of an okay wrestler, that depends on your opponent being a bad wrestler. Drew Dober is not a great wrestler, but he's not a bad wrestler. He looks like he should be a better wrestler, but
he's got the legs of a better wrestler.
Yeah, he's from Nebraska. He's got this big, thick, like fire hydrant build. You're like, that dude wrestles, and it's like
his name is Drew Dober. If I have ever heard the name of a Midwest wrestler, that is absolutely it.
Yeah, I love that he came up as like this sort of like light-fisted volume Muay Thai striker.
A tiny Michael Bisping.
Yeah, and then he slowly developed an actual capable power striking game and enough wrestling behind it to compensate for his what used to be complete lack of wrestling. But and I think that's enough. I mean, I don't think that Tuck's not such a great wrestler that I trust him to just take Dober down and wreck shop on him. He couldn't do that to Damian Brown, who's about as technically good a wrestle grappler as Drew Dober. And then Dober's just a much more consistent combination striker. He hits different targets, will go to the body, go to the head, throw low kicks, tends to chain together 3 to 4 strikes, tends to stay on people. He's hittable. He is not necessarily, doesn't have the best command of distance all the time. I still think he lost that Camacho fight, just throwing a lot of combinations where like he would land one shot to the body kind of, and then Camacho would hit him like twice, but Dober was throwing 4 strikes and Camacho only 2. And so the judges saw
MMA judges don't like accurate, precise striking all the time.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily think, if Tuck were a better volume striker, he would have the capability to crack Dober in there, but I think Dober's just going to take it on work rate, so I'm taking Drew Dober.
Yeah, I can't really add much to that. I agree across the board. I think Drew Dober he's not a turn-taking kind of fighter. He has messed up a few people pretty badly recently, actually, by continuing the attack when they think it's their turn. He's hittable, but the big thing with Tuck is he likes to take turns because he doesn't like to think that he is exposed or vulnerable when he's striking. He doesn't like to trade. He's not comfortable in the pocket. I think Dober is just going to be able to mix it up and essentially lead the dance and make this his fight, because Tuck is, he's going to stand around letting Dober do that. So Drew Dober all the way for me.
Yeah, odds makers the odds pretty much reflect that. Dober is the favorite, opened at -175, adjusted down to -220, all the way down to -225, and then jumped back up to -204, and is currently out at -206. So not a lot of movement on those odds after initial adjustments.
There is this. Oh, I'll let you finish the odds. Sorry.
Okay. My mouse is going really slow here. Tuck opened at +135, adjusted up to as high as +182, dropped back down to +167, and has stayed just about right there. He's at +168 right now.
Yeah, I think that sounds all right.
Dober because he's not that accurate, because he's hittable, because he likes to put out a lot of offense, there's always a good chance of him getting cracked and losing a fight. And
I think there's also the fact that he likes to wrestle these days.
Yeah.
And John Tuck is quite dangerous on the ground.
Yeah.
He's a pretty good submission. He's sneaky. He's got some tricks. So, and we've not really seen Dober tangle with any great submission grapplers in his wrestling time, have we?
Olivier Aubin-Mercier, who submitted him.
Right. But other than that, like he's Scott Holtzman's maybe the best grappler that he's tangled with on the ground.
Yeah, no, I mean he hasn't beat any good grapplers, definitely.
Right. So I think it's possible Tuck could surprise him on the floor.
I don't think Tuck is that good a grappler.
No, I mean he's not that good at anything really. But
no, I mean submitting Jake Lindsay, Taehun Bang, and Takanori Gomi don't really tell me.
Submitted Takanori Gomi? Wait, before you continue, was it in 2006?
It was in 2017.
Oh, never mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
All right. What were you going to say?
Oh, nothing. That was it. I just wanted to say, this is the window for John Tuck, perhaps, that Dober is going to give him some risky opportunities by grappling with him, probably.
Yeah, could be. All right, women's flyweight bout next. Joanne Calderwood, Kalindra Faria. Who you got?
Poor Kalindra Faria, huh? It's like not that she can't, but it's like this is what you get in the UFC. She's lost 2 in a row. They're like, oh, here's somebody else that we also want to succeed at flyweight. Joanne Calderwood, fight her.
True.
If she loses, she's down 3 in a row to top contenders.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I guess I won't spoil my pick, but go ahead with this train of thought.
Well, I just think it's unfortunate for Kalindra Faria because she's had to fight. Well, I mean, granted, she did also just lose to Jessica Ai, who despite
I mean,
she
Jessica
is the
Ai,
future. She is the future champion at women's flyweight, Jessica Ai, but she's also
certainly Jessica Ai thinks that Jessica Ai is a future top contender, and she might be in that division, but not because of her resume.
Yeah. Okay. So this matchup, it's certainly not an easy one for Joanne. I mean, I want to ask you, Zane, have you given up on Joanne Calderwood as like a contender at this point?
Kind of, yes.
I'm kind of there. She's 31.
Yeah.
She's lost 2 in a row now, which isn't like the end of the world, but
no.
Her specific issues are ones that I think have been noticed even when she was winning her fights. Everyone's like, well, there's this. And we haven't really seen her, like, I don't know. We've seen little changes.
This is what I would say, is that by all accounts in her career, she should be about to hit her prime. Things should really start clicking for Joanne Calderwood in the next year. So fights like this and her next fights, like this and her next bout, are going to basically tell you whether or not the improvements that would be necessary to make her a title contender have been made. And if we don't see them, then you got to kind of consider, well, this is just who she is.
Yeah.
And the Calvillo fight especially did not give me a lot of hope.
No. You know, because there were little things I noticed back when Calderwood fought Letourneau. I'm like, okay. It was kind of like when Cerrone went up and fought welterweights. I'm like, all right, footwork looks a little better. Like, here's a couple angles off of, and I wonder if maybe like I don't know, Letourneau as an opponent emphasized some things that weren't changing that dramatically. Like, for example, Letourneau is a long rangey opponent who also wanted to fight at Calderwood's range for most of the fight. And not everyone usually wants to do that with Calderwood. Like, usually they want to get in her face and mess her up. And then in her next fight, Jessica Andrade did that.
Yeah. She
got in her face and messed her up. And it was like, okay, so the footwork she seemed to have added against Letourneau was maybe just it worked against Letourneau. And she still has not changed how her style operates to make it work against other styles. She still has the exact same vulnerabilities.
It should also be noted that, you know, for Letourneau, her bra was pretty much coming off that whole fight. And
there's that too.
And she also, as has been shown in other fights since, you know, her Bellator run's been decent, but she has a tendency to just kind of check out of fights and not really produce any offense at all.
Yeah. She was very, very distracted in that fight and basically stopped doing anything down the stretch.
And then followed it up with the loss to Vivian Pereira, where she just checked out.
Yeah. So, you know, what are Joanne's issues specifically? She's, I don't know.
She's just not athletic. That's the big issue. That's really it.
Doesn't have any like spring that other kind of fighters have, and
doesn't have any dynamism to her offense. She's got a lot of variety. That's like the big secret that keeps her in bouts, is that she can throw with a lot of different. She can come out at you with a lot of different angles if you're going to give her a set range battle.
Yeah, but also there's not a ton of like, there's creativity in the strike, but it's again an old school MMA kind of idea. Like just being able to throw a lot of stuff. That's great. It's good to have options. And there are a lot of just obvious natural switch ups that when I throw my jab, now you're worried about that. Okay, left kick. That kind of stuff works well for a reason. But like, it's not like Calderwood can like set her opponents up to draw them into counters or anything. It's not like she has more than one range to go to. It's like you just kind of have to stay at the range she wants, and then she can mix things up.
Or you have to be an especially overmatched clinch fighter, and then she can, if she gets the ability to really bully you with size in the clinch, then she can make that work.
Right. And Faria is, I haven't seen her be a good clinch fighter, really. I haven't seen her be a tremendously effective wrestler. She's got some throws. She's got some moves to get the fight to the ground. They'll probably work against Calderwood, to be honest.
She's not a bad offensive wrestler. Her thing is that she's not a very good defensive wrestler too, and that her striking leads her straight into the clinch. So it's 50-50 at that point.
Yeah, and you know, like her striking, it's like she seems to hit pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not a lot of process there, so it's like I don't know. Calderwood is the more typical like process driven fighter here, but she's also got such strong limitations that I have never really seen her come close to addressing.
Yep.
I'm gonna take. I don't know. I don't see any reason to like Faria, like what she's done in the cage. Really, I haven't seen anything really promising out of her.
Fair enough.
I think I'm going to stick with Calderwood.
All right. Well, I'm going to take Kalindra Faria. The biggest thing was, honestly, I did like what she showed standing against Jessica Eye.
Well, she kicked her in the head.
She also hit her a bunch. Every opportunity they were standing, she basically trucked her. She just couldn't keep the fight standing long enough to make it count. My feeling is that she's...
How is that the problem you have against Jessica Eye? It's like...
I know. But Faria seems like she's a reasonably okay schooled sort of power Muay Thai stylist. Like, yeah. She's got enough technique to throw and make it work. Her problems have always been that she fights in bursts where she'll just sort of, I'm going to attack you now. And she jumps in with a bunch of powerful offense, gets to the clinch, body locks, looks for a trip takedown, and then looks to advance to top position. And it's kind of a set thing. And if it doesn't work, if something gets broken in that chain, if she gets out wrestled, if she, you know, ends up on her back, she's not very effective from there. And she's not necessarily a very good defensive striker in any way. So if you can bully her out of those bursts, then you can tag her up. Thing is that I think Calderwood needs to prove that she can actually beat somebody who is big and kind of technical and can hit hard and will come after her. Like Courtney Casey would be, you know, her best showcase of that. But Courtney Casey is like sort of the tailor-made, I'm going to short arm my wild punches and stomp around after you and chase and get set up. And I don't really like, I think Faria is a better fighter than Courtney Casey, basically a more process driven fighter than Courtney Casey.
Doesn't have the same incredibly frustrating limitations. Do you think like what kind of fight is that going to lead to in your mind that gives Faria the win? Is she going to start hitting Calderwood a lot and beat her on the feet? Is she going to work her way to the clinch with those strikes?
I think it's going to end up being a very 50-50 contest where Faria just lands the better power shots.
Okay, I can definitely see that.
I mean, the biggest reason that I have this pause is the Cynthia Calvillo fight, where Calvillo didn't wrestle that much, and Calderwood basically didn't throw any strikes at her.
I think Calderwood was at least very worried about the wrestling, and that's probably why she didn't strike so much.
But you know, if she's very worried about it and very able to be thrown off of her game by stuff like that, then I'm more suspicious of her having problems with any reasonable athlete that is going to attack her and make her worried than I am thinking, well, Kalindra Faria is too, you know, not good enough at X, Y, or Z. I just don't, you know, like Calderwood lost to Marina Moroz, who's just not very good.
Kalindra Faria lost to Jessica Eye.
I know.
It's a tough one for me for that reason.
But up a division, I don't know. I'm just gonna go with Faria.
It makes sense.
I think she's a better athlete, and I don't trust Joanne Calderwood to beat better athletes who actually want to fight her.
When has she ever beaten like someone who is an obviously better athlete?
Courtney Casey would be.
Oh, Casey's, yeah, you already said that.
Would be about as close as, and Valerie Letourneau, as we suggested, was just kind of an odd thing. But that's my point. Is that like you put Calderwood in with people who are more athletic than her, and she tends to find ways to lose those fights just because she hasn't hit that hard. She's not dynamic. She's not able to change the flow of the fight, so she just kind of has to walk into shots and try to land her own and out volume people.
Even tiny little Sohee Ham.
So yeah, that fight was razor thin.
Mm-hmm.
So if Faria can be bigger and fight the fight Sohee Ham did, I think she can win.
Can she fight like Sohee Ham? Who can fight like Sohee Ham? I mean,
a lot of people, but okay.
How dare you? How dare you?
All right. Calderwood is the favorite, opened at -185, adjusted down to -204, climbed all the way back up to -164, has dropped down a bit since then to -171, but still pretty clear favorite for Calderwood. And Faria is opened at +145, adjusted up to +168, and dropped all the way down to +137, and has gone back up again to +143. So not too wide. I get why people favor Calderwood. She's more of the sort of, cult favorite fighter, the known commodity. She's won some bigger fights, but I don't know. I just don't. I need to see her actually win fights that I feel like show some sort of, I don't know, some ability to fight through adversity against somebody as big as her. And I haven't seen that really.
Fair enough.
Yeah. All right. That brings us to if I remember too, the Courtney Casey fight, she got pretty badly hurt in like the first round of that fight, and then
Casey swarmed her, and I think like went for an armbar, and then
pulled guard a bunch all the rest of the fight.
Persisted in pulling guard for the remainder of the 2 rounds.
Yeah, okay, that just reminded me too of why I'm picking Joanne Calderwood.
Yeah, she decked her early, much like Moroz did. It was like just after the Moroz fight. I remember everyone was like, "Oh my god, is it going to happen again?"
Yeah, and then Calderwood battled back and fought a very hard fight to win it, but that's kind of
against a very foolish opponent.
Yeah. All right. It brings us to a welterweight bout, Mickey Gall, George Sullivan. And
I don't really get this one either, Zane.
I mean, I get it in that I think the UFC believes Mickey Gall is a better fighter than he is.
Well, okay. Now I get it.
Yeah. And I think that's really it. I think that they,
he beat Sage Northcutt, Zane.
Yeah, he beat Sage Northcutt. He beat
and CM Punk.
And he beat CM Punk. That's right. And he beat Jackson. That's right too. He beat Mike.
Who
Jackson,
also beat CM Punk. So
also beat CM Punk. So basically, he's in title contention as far as I'm concerned. But I am going to pick Mickey Gall, but I am only going to do it because he seems like he has a good chin for his god awful as his strike defense is. He tends to like turn and cower when strikes are coming at him, which is not a good thing. He seems like he has a good chin. George Sullivan has literally never submitted anybody in his career, so the fact that Gall's not very good off of his back doesn't worry me that much. And Sullivan's just a lot older with a lot more miles, and Gall, for as kind of one note as his striking is and not very pretty, actually seems like he packs a fair amount of power. I think he kind of shocks people with how hard he hits, Sage Northcutt being one of them. But the Randy Brown fight too was notable in that Brown was doing really well piecing Gall up outside. And then Gall fired off a couple of hard overhand rights that caught Brown. And Brown spent most of the rest of the fight trying to out-wrestle Gall and keep him on his back. And, that kind of thing to me tells me that Gall probably hits pretty hard. Hard enough to really surprise people even when they're winning. So just for durability and youth, and his ability to surprise, I'm going to pick Mickey Gall, but I won't be that shocked if Sullivan can just take him down over and over and put him on his back and just kind of do a really ugly, grind him out kind of game of ground and pound and offense that makes a really ugly fight and has Gall looking really bad.
Yeah, I'm not confident. Honestly, I'm not confident Sullivan can win. Sullivan can win that kind of fight either, because what tends to happen to him these days is he gets really tired.
Yep.
And he's always been a fighter who has had a problem with gassing, at least as long as he's been in the UFC. But he's now 37.
Yep. I mean, this is the youth factor that
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the whole. I'm picking Mickey Gall too, and that is the entire reason. Is he's 11 years George Sullivan's junior, and so like that means a lot. It means he's, and even if I don't say it all has to do with age, just the things you would associate with youth, like Mickey Gall can take a really good shot. He recovers really quickly. Like, he seems to have great stamina. He can just keep pushing hard and keep working, and he gets a break between rounds. He's back to do it again. That's kind of it. Like, it's like if George Sullivan tries to grind him, he's going to have to work hard enough that he gets tired before Mickey does. If George Sullivan strikes with him, he's probably going to light Mickey up at least a little bit. You know, George Sullivan he has his problems, but he is a pretty well-schooled Muay Thai striker. He's got some moves.
He has surprising power. He looks janky as hell, but he also has that ability where it's like he's just kind of trading with people, and suddenly he'll like jump in and land a right hand that stops him and gets them trying to wrestle him and stuff like that. And you're like, oh man, you know, he's got a bunch of knockouts in his career. It's awesome.
So really, it's like George Sullivan would be a far too hard of a matchup, I think, to push Mickey Gall into at this point, unless except for the fact that he's old. And that Mickey Gall can outlast him and survive the worst that George Sullivan can do, which still, I think that is like, they must think Mickey Gall's better than he is, because I don't think they do. I think honestly, they don't give a shit. They're like, well, he lost his last fight. We see the ways in which this one's difficult, but he needs a difficult comeback. We don't baby people here in the UFC. So let's take this 26-year-old who we decided to sign, even though he wasn't ready, because we wanted someone to fight Sage Northcutt or CM Punk. It was. So we elected to sign this guy, but now we're essentially punishing him for not being ready. And it's like, sorry, Buster, this is the tough road. You gotta get beat up if you want to get back on track, or if you want to progress. So I feel bad for Mickey Gall here, honestly.
I mean, that's the downside of, especially if you're at middleweight or lightweight or welterweight, and you're a young fighter who gets into the UFC early in your career. It's like you've got 100 people ahead of you, that most of whom have a ton of regional experience and are, you know, were the best guy regionally before they got here, and are now just in this big sea. Like Warlley Alves at middleweight, he's further up this card. He's become just a dude at welterweight.
It's like going to college, man, for all these guys. It's like, it is like each of these guys is the coolest valedictorian jock at their high school, and they go to college and they're like, oh, fuck, there's dozens of us here. There's so many cool guys here. So, I feel bad for Mickey, not because I'm not picking him, but because I think it's the kind of fight that could take too much out of him at this stage in his career, even if he wins it.
We'll see.
It's just an unnecessary risk in my eyes. But I'm picking Mickey Gall. Just
unsurprisingly, with all of the hype that came behind him after his CM Punk and Sage Northcutt wins, Gall's a wild favorite. Opened at minus 245, immediately dropped down to minus 293, and is slowly slid out to minus 343. And George Sullivan opened at plus 175, adjusted up to plus 243, and has climbed up to plus 269 and getting higher. So I get it. There's a lot of hype on Mickey Gall. He is a promising prospect, but he looked pretty bad in that last fight against, and also kind of underwhelmingly not ready, Randy Brown. Like, anytime Mickey Gall got put on his back, he looked totally out of sorts. Anytime it was standing, other than his ability to land the random overhand that looked like it hit pretty hard, he looked totally lost. And so it's really dependent on a mediocre wrestling game and then a good top control jiu-jitsu game. But he couldn't submit Randy Brown, and Randy Brown's not a great grappler, is a bad grappler off of his back too. So, you know,
he has his moments. He's a weird fighter, Randy.
He's a weird fighter. But all right, that brings us to a middleweight bout. Andrew Sanchez, Markus Perez, take it away.
All right, we're almost through the portion of the card that I couldn't care less about. I would like the first couple are pretty cool. Last few, pretty good. This one, kill both of these men. I don't care. No, Andrew Sanchez. I mean, you know, Markus Perez, Andrew Sanchez. I'm just gonna say both of their names back and forth. Same.
Marcus Perez, Andrew Sanchez.
Andrew Sanchez.
Yeah, Andrew Sanchez.
Markus Perez. It's Andrew Sanchez is like he's one of those really, really frustrating fighters. You talked about John Tuck's old school MMA mentality. Mm-hmm. Andrew Sanchez also loves to wait and do nothing. It's
he also loves to he does everything. It's always, I was even watching the fight again that he had with what's his name that he lost, the tragicomedy fight.
Ryan James.
Yeah. And it's just like, still, after this has happened now several times to Andrew Sanchez against, you know, Anthony Smith and Ryan James, and even against Khalil Roundtree and kind of Trevor Smith. In every one of his UFC fights, he still throws every single shot with all of his power.
Yep.
And everything he does, he jumps into it. You know, every takedown, he's running forward and trying to pick the person up and slam them down. And then within 5 minutes, he's tired.
Yeah. And
it happens every single time.
Go figure. Yeah, it's got to be something like, where does Andrew Sanchez train? He's according to Wikipedia, he's at Finney's Hit Squad.
Yeah.
Which could be a good team, but I haven't heard of it, so I would be a little surprised if it was. And I'm going to assume, like, yeah, Sanchez, I don't know. He just seems to think that he's supposed to go in there and try and nail the other guy. And it's like there's no subtlety. There's no, like, if Sanchez isn't doing anything, like if you're not seeing him throw a punch, it's because he's tired or he's like just waiting to throw the next punch. He's not setting things up. Typically, he's not like creating false openings. He's not playing with the rhythm. He's not doing anything to change the fight in his favor. He is just waiting and hoping that next time they won't see the big right hand coming.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, like Markus Perez is going to get hit by that right hand.
Yeah.
He's definitely going to get hit by it, but he'll probably still be there to beat Andrew Sanchez later in the fight afterward.
I don't know. It's Markus Perez. So? I think that he's going to gas just as hard as Andrew Sanchez.
Yeah, but I think his style works better gassed. Like, he's going to be pressing to the clinch. He's going to be trying to work on the ground. He's going to be trying to wrestle Sanchez. He's not just going to let Sanchez sit at range and do nothing.
Is he, though? Because the way Perez tends to fight is that he fights this range kicking game, and he just does that until his opponent gives him, like, a ground battle. Like, James Boknovic tried to take him down.
That's fair. I mean, you can see why I don't give a shit about this fight.
Yeah. You're gonna pick Perez, though, right?
I'm gonna pick Perez. Like, yeah, I don't even know feel like I know what Sanchez is good at. Like,
he's a good wrestler and he's a decent grappler, but he puts everything into everything, and it just.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Perez. I think they're gonna end up grappling in the later rounds for whatever reason. I just favor his process in the tie-ups more than Sanchez's. I think he's going to be a little more live at that point in the fight.
I don't know if I feel like I'm trusting Sanchez to have learned something from all this. He hasn't yet, so I don't know.
You did name how it has happened in 4 of his 4 UFC fights. The same thing.
I know. I just think that Perez is too bad standing to go the Ryan James route and have some miraculous comeback.
My dude.
I can't help but be reminded of Perez's fight with Eryk Anders, where within 4 minutes he was gassed out pretty much just from getting clubbed a couple times and then throwing lots of weird kicks that I had no hope of landing. And
I was going to say, like, Ryan James knocked this guy out, but also, like, Ryan James had to go through quite a bit of punishment.
Yeah, Ryan James got fucked up hard. And it's Ryan James. We know that that's, like, his whole thing.
That's his MO.
I'm going to just be a human pinata, and then I'm going to, like, wavy arm sky guy my way back into the fight when you find out that you can't break me.
Ryan James is actually was designed and built by an auto manufacturer to test the tensile strength of the human neck.
That's right.
For auto collisions. He's actually just a big crash test dummy.
He's a bop it clown that just like hits you harder slowly over time. Every time you pop it, it like knocks down and then it just comes
Oh
back
my god.
harder.
I just realized that I just imagine Andrew Sanchez at like a family cookout and they have like inflatables, they have a bop it clown. And I just imagine Andrew Sanchez eventually losing to the bop it clown. Over time, he's
just like swinging at it as hard as he can and just mauling the thing, and then he's getting tired and it just keeps hitting him and hitting him and hitting him.
He gets so mad. He's like, he won't fall down, and he just keeps getting hit, and each bop hurts a little less more than the last one.
Yeah.
Ryan James is a bop it clown. Perfect.
All right. I'm picking Andrew Sanchez.
Yeah.
God love it. But he is a very, very slight favorite. Opened at plus 120 and has basically fallen consistently ever since to minus 120. Markus Perez opened at minus 160. People loving themselves some odds makers loving some Markus Perez, and is now up at minus 104.
Purely a win versus 2 losses in a row kind of thing, I imagine.
Yeah, purely. That brings us to bantamweight bout Iuri Alcantara, Cory Sandhagen. And this is an absolute, once again, question of what version of Iuri Alcantara shows up this time?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the dude who just went out and just absolutely shit-stomped Joe Soto in a minute? Or the guy who just got pieced up over 15 minutes by Alejandro Perez?
Mm-hmm.
And if the worst of Alcantara is more and more likely to show up every time out. He's only getting older. He's only getting more shop worn. There's more chances of him just not being able to pull the trigger, of him doing that, jumping in with wild strikes where he's never quite landing them and getting out slicked. And Sandhagen is just he's a much, much more well-composed striker. Infinitely.
Mm-hmm.
Better footwork, better combinations, better fundamentals. I just don't think he's a very good athlete. And I think he's fighting like he's a very good athlete. And I am going to pick the good Alcantara to show up and to hurt him and to win and to just kind of shock him and be a system shock for Sandhagen of like, you're standing in the pocket and you're trying to cut angles and you're trying to put long combinations together and depend on your head movement and your footwork to keep you out of danger. And you may not actually quite be fast enough and slick enough for that. Because Sandhagen, he does that and he looks good, and then he kind of slowly gets into war. As the fight goes on, it just becomes more and more of a war. And it'll be a war he wins, but it starts to be a war that he wins not because he's way more technical, but just because he's tough and he's willing to stay in it and he's willing to keep throwing and he's willing to be aggressive and stay on somebody. And if he's not athlete enough, Alcantara tends to win those fights. Like the Alejandro Perez fight, Perez is a very safety first, neutralizing, back up, circle away, keep my defense, counter every time you step in. He's obviously shown that he's a very tough fighter to break at bantamweight. And otherwise, Kelleher, Rivera, Sainz is just a good wrestler who was able to kind of take it to Alcantara's grappling game. But most of the people that beat Alcantara are very good athletes,
True.
And I just don't think Sandhagen's that. I think Sandhagen is a very talented, interesting, technical fighter, but I don't trust his seasoning yet to see him through against Alcantara because I think he depends too much on being able to sit in the pocket and out-tough people when things start to go wrong for him.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm a little surprised by your pick, but not disappointed in your logic. Like, we have not seen Jimmy Rivera is maybe the closest to the kind of style that Sandhagen would like to use that might beat Yuri Alcantara, but we've not seen him lose to a fighter much like Sandhagen, either in terms of style or athleticism.
Yeah, and beating Austin Arnett is not meaningful. It means nothing.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, it means something for Austin Arnett, but
yeah, but otherwise, like it's not a meaningful result, you know?
If you are even a remotely slick fighter, you're going to beat somebody like Austin Arnett, who has like one move.
Yeah. We just saw a very decent Hakeem Dawodu, but Dawodu posted like 60-3 significant strike numbers in a round against Austin. It's just like,
yeah, I'll tell you who Sandhagen reminds me of. He is a Ludwig guy, isn't he?
Yeah, I was gonna say, he's kind of working the TJ Dillashaw.
He's at elevation.
Yeah.
So he must have some work with Ludwig, or at least he's just imitating TJ, because there's a lot of
I think it's very much that. I think it's somebody who's very clearly taking a lot of the technical tools that have been taught, and he's showing that, you know, unlike we've seen from some other trainers out there, one or two who have very big notable talents and can't translate skills to less athletic fighters down the line.
I cannot imagine who you might be talking about.
Yeah, I know. It happens so rarely, but
it's like it's blocked from my mind, Zane. It's like it's, you know, like when you block someone on Twitter, it's like it's blocked from my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Duane Ludwig can obviously, I mean, people who still don't believe that Duane Ludwig is a good coach, like, you remember what happened when he was with Alpha Male, right?
Yeah.
Like, everyone got notably better at the thing that Ludwig specializes in teaching. But Sandhagen reminds me of Angela Hill. In that Angela Hill is doing Dominic Cruz, but can't quite pull it off the way Dominic Cruz does, because it wasn't built for her. It's built for Dominic. And it feels like Sandhagen is doing Dillashaw and can't quite pull it off.
Yeah.
Just in the ways that you talked about, like, yeah, it wears on him. He slows down. He's, you know, like, it takes a lot of energy to fight TJ Dillashaw's style, because it's not that it's just a lot of movement. It's a lot of, frankly, inefficient movement. It's a lot of like going into weird positions to throw your opponent off, but you have to have the stamina to back that up. And yeah, I think Sandhagen does seem like he's probably, like, he's 8-1. He's got to be ripe for a fight where, like, a veteran just says, "Oh, you're more vulnerable in this position than you think you are."
Yeah.
And snaps him with a big spinning attack or a big knee or something, or a fight in which he is feeling good and then realizes he still has a very technical and dangerous striker in front of him when he starts to slow down.
Yeah.
But Iuri has looked awful lately. I mean, he destroyed Joe Soto.
Yep.
I think I picked that one.
I think you may have.
I recall thinking, because I trust Joe Soto even less than I trust Yuri Alcantara. But I still don't trust Yuri very much. And yeah, but he's real dangerous, isn't he?
He's really dangerous.
He's super dangerous. Yeah, and it may just come down to experience. You know, I think I'm going to side with you.
I could see Sandhagen winning this fight, and I can see him winning it. I can see him winning it now if the kind of ineffective Yuri Alcantara, who's just not looked great, shows up. And I could see him winning it in a couple of years, just off experience and just off being just a little better prepared to use that style he has, and being a little better schooled with it. But I think right now I'm leaning Alcantara just for the amount of danger he presents and the athletic ceiling he's had.
Yeah, because I've never seen Sandhagen deal with like a sudden moment of adversity or something like that, or like have somebody really push him.
He's had to, like, he's gotten into some actual tough fights against opponents who weren't very good, because he just kind of he gets into fight. He's gotten into fights when he's like a step up. Yeah,
when he's ahead and he can afford to fight. And what happens if he can't afford to fight because either he's not ahead or the other guy's just way too dangerous? Yeah, I don't like this, Sam, but I think I'm going to agree with you. I don't like that pick at all, because I do not trust Yuri Alcantara at all. But Yes. Nah, fuck it. I'm sticking with Sandhagen.
Stick with Sandhagen. It's a better pick.
Yeah, I'm sticking with Sandhagen. I just think, I mean, he's ripe for a veteran loss. There's no reason to think this will be it. So, fuck it.
Sandhagen is the favorite, opened at plus 135, immediately adjusted to minus 257, is currently at minus 237. No movement on that line at all, more or less. And Iuri Alcantara opened at minus 175, immediately jumped up to plus 211, and is currently at plus 190. So
I think there's a bet on Iuri at those odds, man. Like,
yeah, he's dangerous.
Don't bet a lot on Iuri Alcantara ever, but yeah, like this is exactly the kind of fight where it's a rude surprise for.
I don't bet, so I'm not going to tell you, but Connor does sometimes, and he loses a lot, so he'll tell you too.
Yep. I lose all my money, so just don't bet is the best advice.
Yeah.
It is fun, though.
All right. Next up, welterweight bout, James Krause, Warlley Alves, and yeah, take it away.
It's kind of weird too, right? Like, I don't know. I guess both these guys are on win streaks at the moment.
Yeah.
It has the weird feeling of just like, I don't know what to do with these. Just smash them together.
Well, like Krause he's just moving up to welterweight, and it's just kind of weird for Krause in that he's a veteran action fighter who never has really found his place as a veteran action fighter in the UFC. Like, he's not on that Jim Miller, Diego Sanchez, all the other Joe Lozon, all the other old dude action fighters. He's just kind of always been the guy that you test random young fighters against.
Has James Krause turned in action fights on that par of the likes of a Jim Miller or a Joe Lozon? I mean,
he had a cool fight with Darren Cruikshank, and his fight with Shane Campbell was good, but then he went through tough. And
did those guys have any boring fights in the UFC though?
No.
I mean, I think Krause is very matchup dependent to me. Like, not just to be exciting and fun to watch, but also like
it's a little odd to see somebody who's been around since 2007 and fought a lot. There are a lot of people out there who every time James Krause comes, like, oh, I love watching James Krause fight because he does pulls out funky submissions and has hit some highlight moves and stuff like that over his career. That
he's definitely fun. I can't argue with that. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, he's had a weird run where it's like, oh, he was back on tough for a little while.
Yeah,
he's had a really circuitous kind of path. I don't know about James Krause at welterweight. I think he's going to get out grappled by people. Like he likes to grapple.
He does.
He has been beaten on the ground by people who just like hold top position, and he's going to be smaller, and he was already kind of like a willowy guy. So like Warlley Alves is probably going to take him down a lot. Is my general feeling, and Krause can definitely give Warlley problems on the feet. He's also the kind of fighter who will like. He's weird in that I don't know that he makes decisions particularly well, but he does remain cool throughout his fights. Like, he does remain capable of making decisions.
I would say he remains cool to a fault.
Sure. Young veteran-ish in some ways. Except he's 32 now. So middle-aged veteran. But I'm going to take Warlley Alves because I think Krause can absolutely get some work done on the feet, but Alves is just going to have the option to shoot for the clinch or a takedown all the time. And I like Krause's grappling game. It's funky. It's interesting. But Warlley Alves is like, he's the only dude who managed to guillotine Colby Covington. He's a very good grappler. And he has also learned and changed more over the last few years than I think James Krause ever has.
Yeah.
Where
Alves he's done the things that you would have hoped to have seen Andrew Sanchez done. Where it's like, oh, you throw everything into everything, and now you're gassing out all the time. And now you watch the past two Warlley Alves fights, and you're like, you have fought a very controlled, capable fight without putting yourself out into any danger at all.
So yeah, it was disappointing. Like it happened in the Alan Jouban fight. Like Warlley Alves he's a pet fighter of mine because it's like a process of learning how fighters develop. Alan Jouban fight, I'm like, boy, what a robbery. He shouldn't have won that and blah, blah, blah. Because he didn't get an official loss there, nothing changed in the way he fought. But when it did finally officially cost him a fight, he needed that actual L on his record to reevaluate the way he fights. James Krause has
been especially helped to then be thrown in against Usman and just have somebody absolutely grind the shit out of him and be like, look, no, you have to change.
Yeah, just show you what the top of the mountain looks like. And
yeah,
and James Krause has never learned in that way that I've been able to detect. So I'm going to take Warlley to outgrapple James Krause.
He might outstrike him too, honestly. Krause did not look good standing against Alex White. I mean, his wrestling performance in that fight was a lot of having to wrestle.
Sure, yeah. And Alves is not a bad striker. It's just that he gets into trouble striking.
Yeah, he's a very he looks like he should be a better striker than he is. He has fluidity on single strikes, and then you see him chain stuff together, and he just kind of holds his head up and throws the combination and runs forward, and you're like, yeah, okay, wow. But the thing is, to me, is that mostly it's Krause spars. That's really how
his opponents.
Yeah, that's how he fights.
Yeah, you're right.
He fights like he's sparring, and it's not even like a Jorge Masvidal, oh, I'm gonna coast because I think I'm ahead kind of thing, where it's just like, oh, I'm not gonna really engage in this fight anymore, and I'm not gonna, put myself in any danger because I don't have to because I'm winning. Krause is more like, well, let's just go out and trade a few shots and mix it up a little, and I won't try to hurt you too much, and you won't try to hurt me too much. And then his opponent's like, I'm gonna fuck you up, and suddenly, and like that's always been kind of the thing, is that anybody who goes after Krause and stays on him can beat him. He can pull out something really cool and technical every now and then because he's got a good bag of tricks. Like I think he's probably, I know he's done a lot of coaching lately, and my bet would be that he's probably a pretty good coach.
He seems good,
but it just doesn't translate in the cage. It was one of those things like against Gaethje. It was like a terrible fight of Krause just kind of like being like, well, I'm friends with this guy and I don't want to fuck him up too bad, so I'm just not going to go after him that hard. And you're like, oh, well, that was nice of him. And then you watch him against White and he's kind of fighting the same fight. And you're like, oh, wait, maybe that's just how you fight.
But then you see him against Shane Campbell. And he's like landing these left straights to the body and then like coming back with his right hook. Like he has wrinkles. It's just, I'm not even sure I have like an easy metric to say, here's when he fights well and here's when he doesn't.
Yeah.
Or here's the style he works against and here's the style that beats him. It's just like.
Yeah. I just kind of, if Warlley Alves can just be a bully and be physical and stay on Krause, and I don't even think have to take him down and now grapple him, although he might be able to, but just do what he did to the Russian in his last fight, Sultan Aliev, where he just planted him on the cage and just ground on him and hit short elbows and hit short hooks and hit powerful knees. And
I think that's the perfect approach. And honestly, like he could probably go balls to the wall for that. And not be too worried about gassing because like being bigger and more athletic than Krause, I think Krause is going to get tired first.
Yeah, could happen.
If Alves is on top of him, making him work like that, I think Alves can outlast him more easily.
Yeah, so I'm going to pick Warlley Alves too. The youth, the athleticism, and the composure, and Krause just kind of being a guy who, he doesn't seem like he wants to win that much. He seems like he's happy to just go out there and like, let's, get some good rounds in, guys.
Here's what's wrong with me as a person, Zane. This discussion has made me feel much more wistfully fond of James Krause.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I feel like I kind of get him now. And I'm like, I like James Krause.
Oh, yeah, no. Seems like a good, like I say, seems like a good coach, seems like a good dude. He's not a bad fighter. It's just kind of he's out there to like let's get some good rounds in. You see what you can do, I'll see what I can do, and we'll just have fun with it,
I respect that in a way.
Krause opened at plus 170, immediately jumped up to plus 393, and is currently at plus 314. So odds makers and bettors not giving him a big shot. He's trending slowly back down, but not that slow, but not, not so much that he's not still a wide underdog. Our Alves opened at minus 230, jumped straight out to minus 507, and is slowly trended back up to minus 405.
Seems a little crazy, but I do think it's one of the more lopsided matchups on the card.
Yeah, I mean, Krause is he's not a great finisher, other than his submission game. really. He's got a few knockouts, but not at a high level. Most of his knockouts are only against really regional opponents.
No one's even finished Warlley Alves before anyway.
Yeah, so and then to see him winning a points battle, like he just doesn't fight that kind of fight.
Yep.
That brings us to a middleweight bout. Eryk Anders, Tim Williams, and I'm going to pick Eryk Anders, but this is a bit like the Mickey Gall, George Sullivan fight, frankly.
I'm interested to hear your take.
So Tim Williams is very strong. He's a very powerful wrestler, and he's got power in his hands. But he's also a willing striker and an incredibly stiff one. Like he's very willing to try and test out the waters with his hands, try to kickbox, try to get a fight going so that he can get a chance to get in on somebody and pick him up and slam him to the mat. And he often will, a lot of his fights, if I'm remembering correctly, they tend to be damn it. He tends not to be a very fast finisher, if I'm remembering correctly. South Jersey Strangler, Tim Williams. Like, no, damn it. I forgot the topology. Tim
doesn't tell you rounds.
Well, they used to, but they changed their format, so you have to expand each and every fight now to see.
I think you can do it. I think you can do a top-down expansion that expands everything.
But yeah, Tim Williams, like most of his fights, most of his wins, they don't come quickly. He's not a guy who just goes out there and either cracks you and submits you right away or knocks you out right away. In fact, he doesn't knock anybody out. Mostly because he doesn't throw a lot of good combinations. He's a very willing striker, but it's one shot at a time. And then even as somebody who takes people down and gets slamming takedowns and like gets top control and stuff like that, he tends to kind of end up being a bit of a grinder on top and a bit of a positional, holds position and can let guys work their way back up and into the fight again. And I think Eryk Anders just hits too hard for somebody as stiff and willing to trade as Tim Williams.
I thought you were like working towards some kind of. So how does this remind you of the? Are you seeing Tim Williams as the developing fighter here?
No. I'm seeing I would say that like the comparison is that Tim Williams is a very tough, seasoned veteran, much like George Sullivan is.
The difference is Mickey Gall's coming off a loss to Randy Brown. Eryk Anders just had what most people thought was a very close win against Lyoto Machida. He just had his first prospect loss.
But let's not split hairs. That Machida fight was fuck awful.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, Eryk Anders is not as good a fighter as the UFC thinks he is, or as people think he is.
Yeah, but Tim Williams is less proven than George Sullivan to me. I mean, I guess maybe I'm just saying it because I've seen George Sullivan in the UFC more.
Yeah, they're both off the same East Coast circuit. Williams, he's got 2 losses to Anthony Smith and a loss to Dustin Jacoby by doctor stoppage.
Back-to-back losses to Anthony Smith in 2015.
Yeah.
One of them an inverted triangle choke loss.
I know. But otherwise, Tim Williams is a good, seasoned, tough veteran, and I wouldn't be that shocked if he can take Eryk Anders down and choke him out. Like, that's my point. Is that Eryk Anders is just... He's really raw and really dependent on physical gifts. And that Machida fight really was mostly about Lyoto Machida being not the fighter he used to be in any way, shape, or form.
It was a weird one. I mean, I think if Machida was more like his old self, Anders may have been able to pull out a little more. I think he was like, they stalemated each other in a lot of ways, where just Machida wasn't willing to make the first move, and neither was Anders.
Well, I just don't think Anders was capable of making the first move. Not only is he a pressure counter fighter who wants, to counter, but his footwork ended up just being chasing for Machida all fight. He just could not catch up and cut off the cage at all. Which is why I say it was just not a good fight. And it makes me, like I say, I feel with this fight, with my comparison to Gall Sullivan, it's just like I basically just think Anders is physically better and hits too hard, but Tim Williams is technically probably a better fighter everywhere.
Yeah, I'm with you. I guess the only reason I disagreed at first is I like this matchup more than I like Gall Sullivan. This one at least makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, okay, well, we have reason to believe now that Anders has learned a lesson from his last fight. It's like, okay, we have reason to think like, okay, now we get to see if he's learned his lesson.
Yeah, now we get to see if he's learned a lesson.
Yeah, I don't think Mickey Gall is like at the position where you're like, I don't know, you lost to Randy Brown in your 4th pro fight. We need to test you now to see if you're ready for the top. Like Eryk Anders is genuinely in middleweight a little closer to the top than Mickey Gall is at welterweight.
Well, yeah, that's because middleweight is a waiting pool compared to welterweight.
Absolutely, yeah.
Literally half the number of fighters at middleweight as there are welterweight.
Yeah. No, I was going to think of a joke about how the middleweights ate the welterweights or something, but there was nothing there.
No, give it.
So Tim Williams is, I see what you're saying. He's tough. He seems very physically strong.
Yep.
And he seems to have quite a bit of power. He is extremely stiff, as you said, like insanely so. I don't know if his kickboxing game is like a battle bot.
Yes.
It's like
he literally looks like he has wheels on his feet and he's just being like rolled towards his opponent, and then like his coach has those levers for like the Rock'em Sock'em robots, so they just like pull, but they can only pull one at a time every like minute.
Tim Williams' torso and legs are just a chassis.
Yeah.
And then at the shoulders are 2 arms that just spin around like this. He's like when Fry turns into a killbot on Futurama.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And also he looks like he's wearing another person's face as a mask. He has a very scary face, Tim Williams.
Terrifying, yes.
He looks like he killed Joe Lozon. And obviously Joe Lozon was too small, so he stretched Joe Lozon's face over his own. And now his murderer's eyes are just peering out through Joe Lozon's shattered visage. It's really haunting. But yeah, there's no reason not to pick Eryk Anders. He's I
think there's reasons not to pick Eryk Anders, but I think he just hits too hard. I mean, if Tim Williams can get in on his legs and take him down, then he can absolutely out-grapple Eryk Anders.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, it's possible. Who has Eryk Anders fought that's actually a decent wrestler? Not really.
Nobody.
Yeah, anyway. So yeah, that's a fair point.
But I'm still picking.
But also Tim Williams is just not that good.
He's a willing kickboxer, and he's so stiff that he's going to walk into a big power shot.
Yeah.
Especially because he likes to lead. That was the reason I didn't pick him against Pechota. Is like, Williams can't fight without leading.
The Pechota fight, man. Like, it's hard to watch that and then imagine that he could be a good matchup for like someone I view as a promising contender. Because it's like, he just walked into the same shit over and over. He had no adjustment. It was just like he got really mad right when the fight started.
I think actually what it was is that like Pechota tried to lead in that fight.
Yeah.
And Williams actually was willing to counter a little bit. And Pechota got kind of lit up because Pechota's not very good at leading. And Williams was like really feeling himself. He's like, oh, all right, I can just open up on this guy.
Okay.
He started letting his hands go and walking forward. And Pechota's entire capable offensive striking game is based around his left hook counter, and he just walked Williams right into that punch and knocked him out.
When leading is weirdly kind of a gambit. So yeah, we talked about this too long. Eryk Anders, he's the pick.
Yeah, ridiculously to me, Eryk Anders opened at minus 280, dropped to minus 525, is now to minus 1040. I think that's completely absurd.
I don't see a lot of reasons to like favor Tim Williams to win this, but I sure as hell like 1040.
Yeah.
For Eryk Anders?
Yeah, they're treating the motherfucker like he's Anderson Silva.
Eryk Anderson Silva.
Yeah,
not quite.
All right. Williams opened at plus 200, adjusted up to plus 400, is up to plus 632. Anders probably wins this fight, but I don't know.
I'm not betting on Tim Williams, I can tell you that much. But
no.
The odds don't make any sense.
No, they don't. John Moraga up next. Flyweight bout. John Moraga, Deiveson, Figueiredo.
I'm into this one.
And I'm picking Moraga, to put it easily. The big thing is
this is amazing.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You son of a bitch. You get to talk about Eryk Anders first, all right? You can just talk about all the good fights.
Go after it. Go after it.
All right, here we go. I'm also picking John Moraga. I curse you for stealing that exciting twist from me. But I really like this matchup. I'm really interested in it anyway. Deiveson Figueiredo, I don't know what it is. He kind of looks like him. He kind of fights like him. He just kind of seems like him. I'm reminded strongly of Yoel Romero when I watch Deiveson Figueiredo. Like, I say this, and I'm always like, I'm not sure if people understand why I'm saying this, but there is just sort of everything about him reminds me of Yoel. Yeah,
without the ethereal all-knowing of the universe at all places and times. Yeah, I get it.
He's yeah. So he has Yoel's weird rhythm thing. Like, he does a lot of he seems to be doing absolutely nothing, and then he really shocks you with some weird move that you can't quite time. He, like Yoel, he throws. I mean, he hits really hard.
Yep.
And seems to be a very good athlete. Seems very physically strong as well. And he's also seems capable of like throwing hard punches out of what some would call weird positions. Or of like leaping into a position to then rebound and explode into a punch. He seems to have a really good sense for that range and distance when he's attacking. Like being able to judge where a moving target is going to be when his fist meets that point. That kind of shit, he can do it.
Yep.
And so I'm reminded of Yoel Romero's first and only loss as he was coming up towards the UFC, which was to Feijiao, to Rafael Cavalcante. And that was a fight where, like, Yoel was doing okay, as far as I remember. He was in it. They were both landing some shots. And then, like, he took a swing, and this was the first time, probably, in Yoel Romero's entire life that he had thrown a hard punch at somebody and, like, hit them, and then they came back with like 3. Or actually, yeah, and then Feijiao threw the high kick and came with a spinning back fist. Suddenly, Feijiao started to show Yoel Romero layers. And the layers were really a surprise, an unexpected surprise for him. And even somebody as tough and as famously durable as Romero, when he didn't see a shot coming, he got put in his ass and got finished.
Yeah.
And also, because he was so inexperienced as an MMA fighter at that point, he made the worst possible decisions after getting hurt. He tried to fight Feijiao. Rather than doing what, I mean, how does Yoel Romero not out wrestle Feijiao?
Yeah.
Right? Should have grabbed onto him.
OSP did it on like 1 foot, if I remember correctly.
Right. So he made the wrong choice. He was like, all right, I'm going to fight off because I'm hurt. And that's what young, inexperienced fighters do. He wasn't young, but he was inexperienced.
Yep.
And he got finished. And I think this is going to be that fight for Figueiredo. I think John Moraga is a very crafty fighter. I think in a lot of ways, I'll shock people by saying this, he's better than Feijiao. If you check John Moraga's record, you will find he only loses to the best.
Yep.
There have been a couple of weird ones in there. Like, I guess now that he's gotten knocked out by Dustin Ortiz, you could say, oh, Matthews Nicolau isn't the best. But typically, if somebody's going to beat, like, Figueiredo's not going to win a staring contest with Moraga like Nicolau did.
Yeah, that was very clearly to a point in Moraga's career where his confidence had been shaken.
I agree. But, like, Figueiredo's not going to want that kind of fight even.
No.
He's going to try and take the fight to Moraga. And people who do that have to be really, really good to beat John Moraga. That has been the case for his entire career. And that is because he is an extremely well-rounded, skillful, and thoughtful fighter. He doesn't just make dumb snap decisions. He's a trap setting kind of fighter. He's a good counterpuncher. We saw that against Brooks. No, it wasn't Brooks. It was Bibulatov.
Yep, Bibulatov.
Bibulatov, who much in the same position that Figueiredo is in now, coming in riding high off a couple of wins, was like, I'm just going to be a better athlete. I'm going to get in this guy's face. And he got knocked the fuck out really quickly. And I just think Moraga, like, Figueiredo is going to have a harder time than he usually does taking Moraga down. He's going to have a much harder time just hitting him. Moraga's probably going to make him chase for a little bit, let him miss, try and get his timing. And his response to that, I imagine, is going to be to redouble his efforts and try to come after Moraga harder. And I think he's going to leave himself open and get pieced up. I think Moraga might have a really tough first round while he figures Figueiredo out. But as long as I think like his just defensive, tight, well-built style is going to be the right answer for a wild dynamo like Figueiredo. I just think this will be the prospect loss that Figueiredo probably needs, because I think he may be a really good flyweight contender down the line.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think a big part of it for me is, other than Demetrius Johnson too, like, you've had to be a very specific, you've had to be among the, like, just being a better wrestler than John Moraga doesn't really tend to win. It's usually you have to be able to be a better wrestler, be a better striker, be a better athlete, do all of these things in together. You can't just be Dustin Ortiz or even, Wilson Hayes and just kind of be like, oh, well, I'm, able to get you down, or even Babulatov or something like that. You have to be able to really give a complex game. And
I don't want to paint Moraga as like a fighting genius, but he does have that like computing mentality kind of vibe when he's fighting, and often like the key against those kinds of guys is overload their processors. Yeah, they have to deal with every equation at once. Yeah,
and Figueiredo, like I can't get the image out of my head of him getting kind of beat up by Jared Brooks.
Yeah,
when he couldn't get him, like when they weren't on the ground. And as we've seen from Brooks, like, Brooks isn't the division's any best striker by any means. He's not an amazing, well-composed boxer or anything like that. He was just faster and a better combination puncher than Figueiredo.
You say that, but he's the only guy who's been able to knock Jared Brooks out. So he's got to be doing something right.
9 out of 10 times.
Can we bring up the GIF, Zane? let's watch it a couple times.
Yeah. So for me, Moraga, like, you really have to be able to offer something that I haven't seen out of Figueiredo yet. I also am not sure that I don't really feel like Figueiredo's. I don't necessarily think he's got the speed of an elite flyweight.
I'll tell you what Figueiredo is.
What?
He's a bantamweight.
Yeah.
You know how bantamweight is like full of all of these dynamic punchers?
Yep. Yeah.
Except that at flyweight, he's also big enough to lay on people.
Yeah.
Eventually, he'll probably be at 135. I don't know. He seems bigger than he actually is for this division, apparently.
Well, he's kind of wide. He's kind of as wide as he is tall.
Yeah.
He's only 5'5", so he should be a flyweight, but he
feels big in the cage, though, doesn't he? He's got a very.
He's got a bit of that Lineker build going on, where you're just like you're just kind of a bowling ball.
Or Yoel Romero.
Yoel Romero's not the tallest middleweight in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but he's bricked up for the division. So yeah, I don't trust that Figueiredo has the speed to track Moraga down standing, and Moraga's shown himself to be a very capable grappler, fighting off his back and getting back to his feet and making people work. And what I really loved to see out of him in that Wilson Hayes fight is that he showed a lot more willingness to lead and not depend only on his counter games, but to create his own counters, to throw, long range shots, to throw feints, to throw things that would get his opponents attacking him so that he'd have something to counter, which was what was absolutely missing in that Nicolau fight, where he just was like, well, I'm going to wait for you. And it never happened. And then he's also showing a better ability to kind of move around in the pocket and stay in the pocket and keep stringing punches together and staying composed.
I swear to you, Zane, he has always had that ability, because I'll bring this up again. I always talk about this when we talk about John Moraga. I remember falling in love with his style when he fought Ulysses Gomez in 2012, because Gomez got him in the pocket and Moraga was like slipping shots, hitting him with like piece combinations. I just think maybe his problem has always been like he hasn't known how to get to that space.
Yeah.
Either mentally or physically, like he can't set himself up. Like the opponent has to walk into that.
Yeah. So I think
that
he's
was
doing a better job setting it up now.
Yeah.
And as long as he's doing that, and as long as he's, you know, in his physical prime and he's still never been knocked out and he's incredibly hard to submit, then I don't see Figueiredo just being able to stall him out. So I got to take John Moraga by decision.
All right.
Let's see. Moraga. Where is that odd? Oh, there it is. Moraga is the underdog, interestingly. Opened at -105, adjusted up to +124, and has risen just lately up to +131. Figueiredo opened at -135, got down as low as -154, was staying pretty steady at about -150, and then has dropped down to -158 in the past couple days. Figueiredo looked amazing in his last fight. He absolutely beat his opponent pillar to post, looked fantastic, but you got to remember that was Joseph Morales, who's just, you know, he's just a guy at flyweight.
Joseph Morales, whose name on Wikipedia links to the list of current UFC fighters.
Yeah. Like, beat that. It's a cool win, but it's a bit like the Austin Arnett win for Cory Sandhagen.
Sure.
Like, it tells you what it showed is that there's a lot to like about Figueiredo. Seeing a fighter fight a really not good fighter in the UFC is always really great to me because it lets you show how they would fight in their head. Like, oh, this is the best version of me I can be. I'm going to show you all this stuff I've been working on, and I get to show off like how I want to fight. And Figueiredo looked great, but you don't yet know how that scales. And Moraga has had a lot of work at the top of this division, and we know how he looks. You know, his win over Wilson Hayes is a lot more meaningful than Figueiredo's win over some guy at the bottom of the flyweight division. So I got to pick Moraga coming off that, and I love the way he's looked lately, and I love the way Figueiredo looks, and, you know, in a couple of years, this might be a fight that Figueiredo wins every single time against every version of Moraga.
Sure. Just being a super good athlete and being really powerful might just be more than enough.
That brings us to Jake Ellenberger, Bryan Barberena. This is me. Bryan Barberena is going to knock Jake Ellenberger out. It's going to be sad. That's it.
That's it. No, it can't be Bryan Barberena knocks Jake Ellenberger out, Zane.
Dude, we know how this fucking goes. We've seen the Takanori Gomi fight. We've seen the fucking
no, you're right.
What's his name? Josh Berkman fights where Berkman got slowly, you know, boring, and then now you hear Jake Ellenberger talking. He's like, I'm going, you know, it's kill or be killed from here on out. I've got a new attitude and all that. And you remember those late career the recent Josh Berkman fights where he's come out and he's actually tried to fight hard and like put it on people, and he just gets shit kicked in a minute. I'm feeling it.
You're right. No, you're 100% right. Bryan Barberena is a couple of things that Jake Ellenberger very notably isn't. Durable, younger than 30, which means he's more durable. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. Is like Jake Ellenberger, like he really has polished up his game really nicely in the last couple of years, much like Shogun, you know, like Shogun's really added some new depth and some new sheen to his game, but
Smith fight, Anthony Smith fight, is still, it's, you know, I could call that a mile out. Shogun's gonna get knocked out in the first round in like a minute.
Yeah. Even though Anthony Smith, let's face it,
is technically a much worse fighter.
Yes. Yeah, and this is the case here. Bryan Barberena is not technically a much worse fighter. He's a considerably better like technician. He's an MMA lab guy, so like he does a lot of things really well because all those guys do. He's going to have options to go to, but really, like at some point, he's probably going to knock Jake out.
Yeah, especially Barberena is really tough, and he gets better as fights go on. And Jake Ellenberger is not really tough, and that's it. So, okay.
Yep.
Enough said. Odds, Barberena is a heavy favorite. Opened at -285, just down to -401, and slid out to -466. Oh, come on. And Ellenberger opened at +205, adjusted up to +307, and has risen ever since to +348.
Didn't Barberena like very nearly knock Leon Edwards out in that fight?
Yep,
he lost.
Hit a nice little. He was getting shit kicked all fight, and then he just jumped in and hit this perfect uppercut that dropped Edwards and almost knocked him out. And Barberena, he's a good clinch fighter, which is something that Ellenberger is probably going to try to capitalize on. So the fact that Barberena can be tough there and throw a lot of short little power shots in there is a good chance for him to hurt him. And then otherwise, Barberena tends to just wait around a lot outside, throw a lot of kicks, try to get timing, and set up one big leaping in shot. And it might not work several times, but he's tough enough that sooner or later it'll probably work. All right. Courtney Casey, Angela Hill. Take it away.
All right. Well, I've already mentioned Angela Hill and Courtney Casey in previous fight breakdowns. Angela Hill has her issues. They seem like less damning issues than Courtney Casey's. Courtney Casey can't learn. She can't learn. She has a learning disability when it comes to MMA is strategizing. She throws everything really, really hard. Let's say what's good about Courtney Casey. She seems like a really good athlete. She's big for this division. She's strong. She's got power in her hands. She's tough.
Surprisingly good defensive grappler. Like really very strong defensive grappler.
Yeah, I think in all kinds of scrambles on the ground, actually, she shows up pretty well. Big picture stuff though, like understanding how you should be fighting. Like again, strategy versus tactics. Not all the things you can do, but what should you do against most opponents? What suits you? And that's Courtney Casey doesn't seem to know.
Fights like Stefan Struve.
Yes, she fights like Stefan Struve and John Vellante combined.
Yeah.
She's got like no defense, so like a lot of fighters who aren't good with defense, she likes to counter. She likes to, but she throws such power on like the 2 or 3 punches she tries in the counter that everybody sees them coming. You know, like her fight with Figueiredo, she literally had the same exchange, the same entry, same timing, and Figueiredo just got a read on it eventually, and Courtney didn't. And
I mean, it's probably something that Michelle Watterson got a read on it, and Watterson has a very kind of fundamentally broken game for MMA, and
she's not exactly a reading kind of fighter.
Yeah.
And Casey was easy to read. She's an open book because everyone you step in the cage with her, and like you look at her, you're like, oh, I know exactly what she's trying to do to me. And if you've watched her tape, you know exactly what you can do to her to stop her. So Angela Hill's going to do those things, I think. Angela's problems are much less damning because it's essentially just that, like I said before, she's fighting a style that is very Dominic Cruz-esque. She doesn't have Dominic Cruz's stamina. And I think she doesn't have as much experience with the style, so she's probably straining and putting more effort in than she needs to a lot of the time. And flinching because and tiring herself out like that as well, because she does end up in some scraps, quite a few of them, as she does start to slow down. She can't just like calm down. And
she does start to slow down though. She's also a lot better about sitting on her power shots. So, it's kind of
absolutely. Yeah.
It's kind of a two things carry. It's like she starts out high movement, hard to hit, doesn't hit with a lot of power, and then slowly moves to flat-footed, right in front of you, not hard to hit, but hits much harder.
Yes, much considerably harder. There's a real difference. I think it's still possible that Angela Hill can discover the middle ground between those two options. That she can, like, especially against somebody like Courtney Casey, this would be a good opportunity because this is the kind of fight where you can just let nothing happen. You don't have to be like zipping around constantly trying to trick them. Just like let nothing happen for a minute. Let them miss. See what they do, get a read on the fight. That's what makes Dominic Cruz so good. He loves to say the word read on UFC broadcasts.
True. Underhooks
and reading are his favorite hobbies. So it's Angela Hill all day. I just think she's got way more options than Courtney Casey here. And I think also she may even, like, if she gets into trouble, she might be able to out wrestle Courtney Casey too. She's not nearly as big or strong, but she can time a good shot. We've seen her take people down and beat them from guard.
A notably terrible wrestler.
Yep. And she will stay on the ground once she gets there. So she might be dangerous there for somebody like Angela, but Angela's also like in her Invicta days, she messed around on the ground with some very good jiu-jitsu players and looked fine.
She's become much more composed. She beat Livia Hanada Souza there, and Souza's a very decent grappler.
Yeah.
I mean, I think just mostly that her movement early will be too much for Courtney Casey to track down. She's got fast hands, but she's slow-footed, and she doesn't have good footwork, so she doesn't cut the cage off.
Also,
she just ends up
like one of the guys we'll be talking about in the next matchup. I think she could be faster if she just like relaxed a little bit.
Yeah,
she tries to hit.
Really
so
looks
hard.
like she's tense all the time. And when I talk about her fighting like Stefan Struve, she doesn't get any extension on anything.
Right.
You have to be sitting right in front of her in the pocket for her shots to land.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So, for Hill, I mean, if she can just be, move early, she can probably keep Casey from tracking her down. And then as the fight goes on, it might become a much more of a scrap, much more of a close scrap. But, I still think Hill tends to still like be able to move in and out of range and set things up. So if she can just read Casey a little doing that, then she should just be able to edge out close late rounds.
Important factor too, that Angela Hill seems to be extremely tough.
Yeah, they both are very tough. So
Casey's power is probably not going to save her.
I expect Hill will make this fight, like she does most fights, tougher on herself down the stretch, but she'll probably still win it.
Yep.
Hill is the favorite, very slightly. Opened at -175, adjusted up to -130, and has moved up and down a bit. Got down as low as -149, and has just recently risen all the way back up to -134. So a lot of movement up and down on those lines. Casey opened at +135, adjusted down to +108. Has gotten up as high as +123 and is now back down at +110. So I like the lines close with Hill as a favorite. I think, like I say, I think Hill has the advantage here stylistically, but she's a fighter who, because of her inability to find out where the line of her style and how it suits her, she always tends to fight to her competition. Even against fighters that she's better than, they tend to be close, tough fights.
True.
That brings us to our co-main event, Michael Johnson, Andre Fili. And I shouldn't, but I'm going to pick Michael Johnson. And I think this is who you're talking about also being quite tense and
someone who is incredibly fast, but actually like takes a couple notches off their top speed.
Yeah. Because Michael Johnson is incredibly fast.
Yeah.
Really shot. Every time I watch tape on him, I'm like, oh god damn, this guy is fast.
Hand speed more than anything, but foot speed, everything.
The way he throws kicks, his kicks are lightning quick, especially his body kick.
Who gets away with more naked kicks than Michael Johnson?
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't set any of them up, and they almost always land.
Yeah. The big thing for me, though, picking this fight, there's a good, solid chance that Fili can change it all with his wrestling and just put Michael Johnson on the canvas where Johnson tends to start panicking. And once Johnson starts panicking, his entire game tends to just kind of blow up, and you never really know how. I don't think Fili's anywhere near the control wrestler or decisive grappler that even Darren Elkins is, where it's like, oh, Fili gets him down, it's fucking over. But
can he do a little bit of what like Miles Jury did back in the day?
Yeah.
Probably. A little bit.
The thing is, the reason I'm picking Johnson is that given the chance, Fili will give ground. And he almost always gives ground, even to somebody like Artem Lobov. And the thing that really beats Michael Johnson, and even like you look lately, what has beat Michael Johnson against Darren Elkins, Justin Gaethje, and Khabib Nurmagomedov, and Nate Diaz, and Beneil Dariush, they are all pressure fighters. All of them. They all crowd. They all take away space. And Michael Johnson, because he will also fight off his back foot. He will also give ground. And as he gives ground, he starts to feel crowded. He starts to feel pressure, and his game starts to devolve. I mean, he was absolutely beating Justin Gaethje's ass for half a round, but Gaethje just stayed on him and landed kicks and kept the pressure up. And suddenly, the exchanges where Gaethje was getting hurt really bad started to end up being the exchanges where Michael Johnson was getting hurt really bad, because Gaethje was comfortable and Johnson was uncomfortable. But if Fili can't crowd him, and I don't think Fili can, I don't think that's in Fili's game. He's very much a fighter who, at best, given his ideal matchup, Fili wants to be just out in open space, moving in, moving out, set up a couple shots, drop back out of the pocket, look, see what else is there to set up, find something else. It was like that Mowgli Benitez fight. That's kind of the ideal Andre Fili fight. And that could happen here. I mean, that showed off Fili's creativity against a very fast-handed, heavy-hitting striker.
Southpaw, too.
Yeah, Southpaw, too.
A lot of parallels.
There's, but Benitez is a bit more meat and potatoes than Michael Johnson. Johnson tends to throw, especially at the time. I'm not saying that Johnson is more technical. I'm just saying that Benitez is like the definition of like, here's a 1-2 down the pipe and a low kick.
I see Johnson as a fairly rote striker. Like, he throws like 5 combinations.
Yeah.
And a left kick. But at the time, Benitez was even more limited. Yeah.
And I just don't like that kind of setup has never really been that's never been what gets to Johnson. Like Edson Barboza has the same kind of thing, and Michael Johnson was able to beat him. That same ability to just kind of like want to dip in and dip out and set up something creative and be a little funky. And like the thing that breaks Michael Johnson is not his inability to see creativity, it's pressure. It's just constant pressure. And if Fili can't apply that, and I don't think he can, then I think that Johnson gets to be much faster and more dangerous standing up. So I pick Michael Johnson.
So like I agree in spirit with the idea that pressure is what screws Michael Johnson up. There are people who beat him without pressuring him in the way we normally think of it, right? Like Nate Diaz pressured him a bit. He made him walk backwards and stuff, but he didn't like get in his face, push him against the fence, corral him, trap him, and make him make hard decisions. No, he kind of just made it so that he wasn't like walking forward doing whatever he wanted to do.
He made Johnson. He gave Johnson openings that made Johnson feel like he needed to match a pace that he couldn't match.
Sure, yeah. I think like the Michael Johnson's big issue is and always has been, he's like he gets pressured. I want to say this. I think there's a way to pressure Michael Johnson without having to be a pressure fighter against him, because I think his game is very shallow. There's, the thing that Michael Johnson really wants to do, what he really wants more than anything else, is for you to throw a stupid right hand as he's like standing in front of you, making you want to react, and then he just gets out of the way and hits you with 3 shots in return.
Yeah, exactly. He wants to be able to. He's very much a counter fighter who will throw fast enough when he leads, that the fact that he leaves himself a bit open when he moves forward doesn't tend to matter.
Yeah. And he is quick enough that he can, like, it used to be a completely stupid thing that people would be like, oh, the low kick is the jab of MMA, which is obviously asinine, because when you low kick, so the person in front of you can just step through it and fuck you up, which shouldn't be possible when you're jabbing. At least it shouldn't be as easy. It's supposed to be a fairly safe attack. But Michael Johnson legitimately gets away with using his kicks as pot shots, because people try to counter them sometimes and he nails them. Because he's already got his feet back under him. He's very quick, and he is a counterpuncher, an aggressive counterpuncher. But he's not a very creative or thoughtful counterpuncher.
No.
He basically just waits for you to make the first move, and then just throws. It's either a right hook or a right uppercut, and either a left straight or a left overhand. Occasionally, there's a left uppercut in there. Occasionally, that right hook will go to the body, but mostly it's like a couple of punches, and they come in combination, and it makes them very dangerous. Man, the Miles Jury fight is what really stands out in my mind, because Miles Jury did not pressure Michael Johnson. In fact, for good portions of the fight, Johnson was pressuring Jury. But Jury, because he knew that Johnson was waiting for his triggers, was able to fight like he was pressuring Johnson. Johnson still, you shouldn't be predictable if you're the one pressuring, right? Yeah. But there's so little depth to Johnson's aggressive counterpunching that it's like, well, I'm just going to show you this, and when you throw, I'll take you down. And that worked several times.
Yeah.
Also, Jury on the ground and in the clinch, he got Michael Johnson down with a takedown that is literally identical to the takedown that Khabib Nurmagomedov hit on Johnson 4 years later. Which I think is kind of damning. You think that Johnson hasn't really improved in certain positions at all in half a decade. But what happened is, like, this is where the pressure really comes into it. Johnson, he hates being hit in the face. He hates being controlled.
Yeah.
Like, you hold him on the ground and then you just start touching him on the face. Like when Darren Elkins wasn't hurting him. He wasn't in trouble, but he was like, I got to get the fuck out of here. And he gave up his back. And those are the kinds of things I think that Fili can do. Like, Fili's got a lot of, like, his way too big on his movements, leaping in and out. That got Edson Barboza in trouble because he was just reacting too much, rather than, like, the thing to do against Johnson is to stay in the range where he thinks you're vulnerable, get him to start attacking, and then fuck him up.
Yeah.
But Fili does have a really well-timed shot.
Yeah.
And he's got a good, powerful jab. He's also got one of my favorite anti-southpaw weapons, which is a very good right high kick. I think with his frame and then, of course, the big factor we haven't mentioned is that what happens when Johnson does get frustrated, or even times when he doesn't, he gets tired.
Yeah.
Because the issue with how hard he throws is not just that it slows him down more than it should, even though he's still incredibly fast. It makes him really tired. And he tries to knock you out with almost every single punch he throws. And I got to imagine he's feeling the pressure now with, like, 3 losses in a row. New division.
About how much he's feeling the pressure. He says, like, I'm feeling a shitload of pressure right now.
Why wouldn't you? And at featherweight, like, maybe not the right move for somebody whose best weapon at their other division was speed.
Yeah, I find that my feeling is always wrestlers do well to get as low as they can, where they can inflict size on people, and strikers tend to do better being up at a natural weight class where they can just be way faster.
Because Johnson could be out wrestled before, but it was by, like, really skillful chain wrestlers generally.
Yeah.
Who would frustrate him. And maybe Fili can't do that, although he might be able to. He's not bad in the clinch.
Yeah.
But also, like, people don't need to chain wrestle you so much if you're much easier to time.
Yeah.
Slower. So I'm going to go with Andre Fili here. I like your pick. I think it's a pick'em to me, but I'm going to go with Andre.
Yeah, it's a close fight. I can absolutely see Fili winning this. He's got a takedown game to work, and it's not a bad one. It worked on Dennis Bermudez. It worked on Artem Lobov.
And the kicking game. I like the kicking game a lot.
And he's got tools to be competitive in this. I just also can't get over. I don't think he's the kind of fighter that can really adjust well to people. And I think, like, a problem like somebody just being way faster than him is going to be a continuous problem.
Who's the fastest guy Andre Fili's fought up to this point?
Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Or Godofredo Pepe.
Benitez has very quick hands, but
Benitez does have very quick hands. So that's like the vote in his favor is Benitez. And the votes against would be Yair and Pepe.
Yeah. I guess the question for him is, like, will a round of not winning the fight yet turn Michael Johnson into something more like Gabriel Benitez?
Yeah.
Like a little more predictable, a little less variety, a little more,
Could be. And the thing that I come back to, too, though, is the Artem Lobov fight.
Yeah.
Where, honestly, like, Fili did all right, but a lot of it was him wrestling and Lobov, like, him kind of outworking Lobov standing, and then right as Lobov would start cracking him standing, he would wrestle and take him down.
Yeah.
And it's just like if Lobov is consistently cracking you, I worry.
Yo, he consistently cracked Cub Swanson, dog.
I know.
Artem Lobov, best boxer in the UFC.
Yeah, well, there's also a reason that in the last Cub Swanson fight, when people were like, "No, Cub's just good enough to hang with Renato Moicano," I was like, "Yeah, about that."
Yeah.
All right, odds on this fight: Fili is the favorite, very, very mildly, close to dead even. Opened at plus 125, adjusted down to plus 118. Has stayed pretty stable up until the last couple of days, and he dropped from plus 116 to minus 113. So, a bit of an odd swing there for Fili. Johnson opened at minus 165, adjusted up to minus 136, and he was trucking right along in that range up until just like yesterday or today when he went from minus 144 to minus 109. So, big late money coming in on Andre Fili. I guess. That brings us to our main event. Justin Gaethje, James Vick. And take it away.
This is the one. We're here. Oh, boy. Well, I mean, I think like you can imagine all the ways in which it feels cruel, but this is kind of like an ideal matchup in this division right now. James Vick been waiting for a chance to step up. Last time he tried, he got absolutely wrecked by Beneil Dariush. Absolutely wrecked. But now he has looked a little better. He's on the cusp of a ranking. And so, you know, throw him in there against the guy who everyone's really excited about. He always excites us, but he's lost 2 in a row now. Now, it is worth remembering, Justin Gaethje has lost to 2 of the very best fighters in this division. He lost to Eddie Alvarez. He lost to Dustin Poirier. Both of them were at the time they finished. There's 2 ways you could say this. Both of them at the time they finished Gaethje, you could say they were maybe like 1 more leg kick away from being finished themselves. Alternatively, because their legs were so fucked up, both of them may have needed to finish Gaethje at the points at which they finished him.
I would say it's much, much more true of Alvarez than it was of
Eddie
Poirier.
said that. Eddie was like, I would have needed to finish him in this round. When he did, like immediately after finishing him, he was like, two more rounds on that leg wasn't going to happen. Poirier was not quite there, but Poirier was getting there. I mean, he was hurting, and
that was only a 3-round fight though for Alvarez, so that he did finish him right at the end of the fight.
Right, that's right. In this interview, he said, if this had been a 5-round, I would have needed to finish him in that round.
Yeah.
Poirier did have a 5-rounder. He finished him at the start of the 4th.
Poirier was well in control of that whole 5-round fight. It was always the whole time. It was like Gaethje was doing okay, but you kept thinking, when's Gaethje actually going to turn this? Like, when is he going to actually make this feel like he's really in it and not just consistently behind?
Yes, but Poirier was in dire trouble in the 3rd round.
Yeah, he was, briefly.
He was doing really good, but in the 3rd, he started to get hurt.
Yeah.
And also, his leg was really, really starting to feel the damage from all the
kicks. Sure. Unquestionably.
So can James Vick win a fight like that? Is the first question to ask. And my instinct says no. Yeah,
that would be my instinct too.
Second question is, can James Vick not have a fight like that with Justin Gaethje?
Maybe.
Maybe. You know, he's the thing. James Vick, like the thing that obviously stands out about him is that he is a giant for this division.
He's a giant, and he fights like one. That's the thing. Is he has become a long fighter.
Yes. Yeah, long and tall. Like he uses both his height and his reach quite well. Very dangerous with knees and uppercuts. Great tools for a tall fighter. Especially against the guy who
wide base and to like be low and not easy to take down and actually throw long straight punches that emphasize his reach.
So, you know, I say this too often, but may as well say it again. James Vick is literally the same height as Luke Rockhold. Just keep that in mind. He fights at 155. He's as tall as Luke Rockhold, who should go up to light heavyweight, by the way, who's too big for his division. So there's a real chance that like Gaethje has never encountered somebody with a build like this. He has never encountered a jab that can touch him when he still feels like he is an arm length out of reach. That's going to be a difficulty. But the thing is like strategically, can James Vick maintain? He'll have to finish Gaethje, I think, to win a fight like that, which is possible. You know, like Gaethje's been getting hurt and he's hittable and everything. But also the trick is like the reason the last two guys that beat Gaethje had such tough fights with him is because like every time they hit him, within the next like 15 seconds, he got him back. You know, even if it's just adding up low kicks now and then or something like that, he got him back. And I don't know that Vick had his fight with Phil McKenzie pointed this out and was a very good comparison. James Vick's worst round against Francisco Trinaldo was the third, which looking at Francisco Trinaldo and knowing his fights, you know, like we have to give him credit for learning over the course of his career how to manage his energy, but also like he gets tired easily too, and tends to do a little better earlier against some guys. James Vick, probably because he cuts a tremendous amount of weight, got really tired by the end of that fight, and Trinaldo had a good third round after losing the first two pretty badly. Not only is Gaethje exactly the kind of fighter who does that, but he is also going to be doing a lot more attritive damage to make Vick slow down in those early rounds. James Vick's legs are going to be an extremely inviting target for Justin Gaethje. And yes, Vick will be landing his jab, but if Gaethje eats the jab every time and makes Vick eat a leg kick counter in response every time, Gaethje's going to win that fight. So I am going to take Justin Gaethje here. I just think strategically his style makes more sense for this kind of matchup. I think Vick is going to be super duper dangerous in specific moments, like tactically being really tall and having the tools to make that height an issue. Really dangerous against an aggressive fighter like Justin Gaethje. It really is. But I just don't see how he does it for 5 rounds.
Yeah, I think the thing I would say is that Gaethje probably either gets finished early or wins. And it's mostly because I think he would finish Vick down the stretch. And it's a lot of that too is in part because Vick has just classically, like, he either finishes you really quickly, tends to, or he tends to have a very safe, boring, uninteresting fight.
Yeah.
Where he just tries to be controlled and outside.
And we can say regarding that kind of fight, like, yes, Gaethje has never faced a build like Vick, but Vick has faced one pressure fighter who was even remotely similar to Gaethje, and he got knocked out really fast.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So
can he actually do that, fight that measured pace from long range?
Yeah, and Trinaldo was the closest next thing, and Trinaldo's not that kind of pressure fighter entirely.
And it was still close in some ways.
Yeah, it was still close in some ways. It still ended up, as you say, down the road. It ended up being tough for Vick. And, you know, he did finish Duffy in the second round, but that fight, you know, it emphasized something I was worried about, which was that if Duffy can't actually work out of the clinch against James Vick, then he couldn't stay in the pocket, and then he would just be totally constrained to a range battle. And that was exactly what happened. And then, you know, otherwise a submission over Abel Trujillo is nice and all, but it's not something I give a lot of weight over, even if it happened late in the fight. Just Vick, I mean, I think about like his fight with Nick Hine, where like he just kind of got stuck in this really long, boring, safe range fight because he didn't like what was coming back at him. And I don't think you can do that against Justin Gaethje. You can't avoid the fight against him.
No, you got to punish him for trying to have it, or you got to fight him in it.
Yeah. So I'm picking Justin Gaethje, but my God, am I worried that he is going to just fall off a fucking cliff, and we're all going to be like, "Oh my God, he can't fight anymore." You know, like I was reading I was helping Case, our video producer, who makes a lot of our shorter videos for Bloody Elbow. I was helping him with the script on Justin Gaethje. It was like a stats script. And Justin Gaethje has been hit like 500 times over the past 3 UFC fights. 300 in the head.
Jesus.
Like, it was 47% more than Edson Barboza. Never mind, they can be compared to Dustin Poirier, Eddie Alvarez, and Edson Barboza. Way more than Alvarez and Poirier.
Barboza had those fights with Lee and Khabib.
Yes.
Where he just got battered for 5 rounds straight.
47% more than Edson Barboza, with Barboza's fights against Lee and Khabib in those 3.
Yeah, that's not
so.
A good look.
The amount of punishment he's taking is really ungodly. Like, it's just not going to serve him well. And I know he's not going to be doing this for a lot longer. He said as much, but he may not have a choice, you know?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I'm worried a lot about that because his style is entirely dependent on his ability to walk forward and take shots and then answer back. He defaults straight to the high guard. If you find a way around that guard, he's going to get hit, and then he's going to try to swing back, and he's going to hit you in the legs. And then when you start thinking about your legs, he's going to start opening up with wide hooks. But he has to walk through shots to make that happen. Vick has long range. He's got the kind of reach that means that he has power no matter what. It's kind of like
he's always hitting you at the sweet spot.
Yeah.
He's always hitting you like when you are just getting into range, you are right on the end of his power arc.
Yep. It's the same. It's like he's got the Nico Price power. Where like you watch Nico Price throw shots and you're like, that's ugly as shit.
Yeah.
Vick's more technical, but Price still hits people with shots that just like, oh, that dude's fucked up now. So, you know.
I think Price is more natural power than Vick, but Vick definitely has like some of that semi-shilt thing going on where it's just like, I'm running into this and it really hurts. It's like, this is a hard jab that keeps hitting me. These are hard body kicks or whatever.
And so there's a lot of danger there. You know, this fight is not without danger for Justin Gaethje, and it's notable too that Gaethje's talking about like, oh, I need to have less fun. I need to be more composed. And Vick is a very good opportunist. If you do make mistakes, if you don't have composure, he can jump on stuff, especially with this submission game. So there's a lot of danger in this. I trust Gaethje's pressure to get to Vick. I trust his chin to ride through early spots where Vick is going to try to be dynamic and get hit and then be like, you know what? I don't want to do that as much anymore and kind of fade out of the fight a little more. But that's, you know, it definitely feels like I'm taking a little bit of a leap trusting that.
Yeah. Are you expecting Gaethje to wrestle?
No, I don't think
he has been talking about it. You don't think he's actually going to be able to do it?
No.
Yeah.
If he tries, I would actually worry more about him losing this fight because I think he would freeze up more in the cage trying to figure out what he wants to do because
it's like he has wrestled more in past fights. It's not like it's like a complete foreign idea. He's actually like some of his greatest moments are in the transitions from wrestling to striking.
Yeah, that's true. He's a very good transition fighter. That would be very smart if he could do that.
Like if he could like get in on like a high crotch, off balance a big guy like Vick and then just slug him with a hard shot.
Because
Dariush hit Vick out of the clinch.
Getting Vick down.
Yeah, and Dariush messed him up in the transitions out of the clinch.
Yeah, so that would be something that'd be good to see if he actually did that. I would be worried if he just was going to go to like a wrestle, like a pure
just shot takedown to get guillotined.
Yeah,
yeah.
All right,
he can mix him up well. I would like to see him bring a little bit of that back and not just stand in the pocket. Like that would be especially dangerous against a guy like Vick.
Yeah, Gaethje is the underdog here. Opened at -115, adjusted up to +122, got up as high as +140, and is back down at +126 right now. Vick opened at -115, adjusted down to -148, got all the way down to -167, and is currently back up at -152. So I get it. Vick's on a roll. He's dangerous. He's improving steadily. The biggest things I've seen improved for him are his movement out of the pocket. He's cutting corners much more naturally than he used to.
Yes. Yeah.
and his ability to throw long shots without quite seeming like he's been scared into it. His composure in that way has improved a lot.
I still keep thinking about that Duffy knockout, but
yep,
beautiful setup and like the kind of composure to just be like, okay, I'm going to not intend to land this shot. I'm going to make him move. I'm going to be ready with the trap when he does.
Yep.
Like, can be a little anxious to be a tall guy and do that when you're like, you really know you need your reach to stay safe.
Yeah,
and he was
classically Vick was always somebody that when you came after him, you could just see the panic in his movement. He just kind of be flinching quickly and trying to like get out of the way and run out, backing up and getting
a year before he would have thrown that jab. Duffy would have ducked under, and it would have made Vick nervous, and he would have backed off.
Yep.
So, but hey, he does have 3 of those 18 combined KOs. So
yeah, well, I mean, like I say. I kind of worry still just because I know Gaethje, you know, like Gaethje's just soaking up everything.
Yeah.
It's like if Roy Nelson actually was getting knocked out at the end of those hellacious beatings he was taking, that's kind of what Justin Gaethje's doing.
Yeah, yeah. And granted, like, again, 2 of the best of the division, 2 of the hardest hitters, Poirier and Alvarez. But he's already, those fights have happened now.
Yeah.
Now he has absorbed all of those shots from the division's hardest hitters. So how much power does it take now to finish him?
All right. On that note, you can find me on Twitter at TheZaneSimon. You can find Connor on Twitter at BoxingBush, BUSCH. You can find both of us over at BloodyElbow.com, and where we are day in, day out. And our YouTube channel, MMANation.com, DOTCOM, all spelled out. Give this video a like while you're there, thumbs up, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, MMA Nation. I already said it, whatever. But and a quick note, I meant to open this, but we may not. We're gonna try to fight to keep this show video, but we may end up switching to an audio only podcast before long. I don't know. Corporate masters and overlords telling us that they want direction changes and things like that. So we're gonna try to keep doing a video version, but we'll see. For the immediate future, still on video. In the near future, it may end up will only be on SoundCloud and iTunes, but we'll try to let everybody know ahead if that's going to happen.
Eat your hearts out while you still can.
That's right.
Get these pretty